Are we filming? Okay. I'll be interviewing Corynne Dech on behalf of the Access and Equity team for Robotics, talking about women in STEM and her experience. For starters, growing up, in what ways was your family and friends supportive to your STEM goals?
Oh, my family was very supportive. It feels like my entire family is all STEM educators, so I was kind of raised up, maybe almost not an expectation, but was always pushed towards science and math because that's what my family was into and talked about. So that was probably a big driving force into me getting into STEM from an early age was my family. And then since then, my friends that I made in college have been brought a big social aspect into tech, and part of why I love it is the friends that I made.
How were you exposed to STEM, and what were your initial thoughts? Did you really like it, or were you kind of hesitant to enter the field?
That's a good question. I'd say when I was through middle school and high school, I knew I wanted to do something a little sciencey, but never thought that I would go into a pure science field. I always liked the intersection of STEM and art. So for a long time, I thought I wanted to be an architect. But then I took a serious art course and it didn't go very well, and I realized, I'm actually really good at math. I should just capitalize on this and stick with this thing that I'm really good at. And it's been cool along the ways. I found ways to get a little bit of art. So like I work on a lot of UI. So even though I'm coding all day, I still have kind of that creative art brain into it too.
What are UIs?
A UI is a great question. A UI is a user interface. So that's kind of the concept of what actually appears on your screen. So things like the size of the buttons, the text, the font, the colors, the layout of everything. It's really important, and there's a lot of research that goes into every little thing that appears in front of your eyes. So that's an interesting intersection because UI designers, so people who actually come up with UI, usually go to art school first. Yeah.
So what did you know about the STEM field when you were a child? Like your parents were very involved in it, so did that influence you?
I think I mostly only knew about the academic side of it, with my dad obviously being a physics teacher. I also had an uncle who was a neuroscience professor. So kind of most of the role models and people in science that I had to look to were in academia or research. And so it wasn't until the end of college even when I really started to get a feel for all of the industry jobs that were out there, especially with, this whole concept of startups and a lot of the tech things didn't come until I was really in late high school and college. So that's probably what I grew up with most.
So when you were at Westtown, what kind of STEM-related activities were you able to be involved in?
I didn't do a ton of activities. I was in, most of my focus was in my classes. So took lots of math classes and advanced science classes and things like that. But that's an interesting question because I think I really wasn't involved. I didn't think of science as being something I could do outside of class. And even though there was a robotics program, I think part of it was that there weren't any girls in the robotics. There was maybe one when I was here. So it was just like not socially possible. It just didn't feel like the right choice when 15 of my girlfriends were on the dance team, or I could do robotics, which certainly was cool, but just because there weren't people that that my friends or people I was close with were doing it, I really kind of avoided it. So that was something interesting in high school. I think in college, I just by nature was surrounded by people in my major, so that ended up becoming a social and a academic endeavor to get into tech. But in high school, there was definitely something holding me back from thinking about myself as a woman who would do tech in her free time.
Yeah. Where did you go to college and what did you major in?
Sure. So, I was Westtown class of 2012, and then I went to the College of William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. I studied computer science and also applied math as a double major. College of William & Mary is not a tech school at all. It is a small to medium-sized liberal arts school, huge focus on international relations and economics, and we don't have an engineering program. It was a very small computer science program that came out of the math, just sprung out of the already small math department. So it was a very interesting experience. It ended up having a lot of unexpected benefits for me, being kind of a big fish in a small pond there. I got a lot of research opportunities and a lot of, could really stand out in my classes just because of the nature of the small program. And actually going into industry and looking for jobs, coming from a small school, I think worked to my advantage in a lot of ways too. And a lot of companies were even looking to hire from liberal arts colleges and non-traditional engineering schools, because they just found the students were more well-rounded and had personal skills and writing skills and things beyond just tech. So that's my college experience.
How many years did you study to be in your current profession?
Just the 4 in college. It's definitely, I know some people who did a 5th year or did some kind of master's. In computer science, it really wasn't a requirement. You can really get into industry and get your hands dirty, and a lot of your value in a company is in the knowledge you build up within their specific system, as opposed to kind of general knowledge in academia. So I really kind of wanted to get a job and get working and see what it felt like. And then if along the way I developed some really particular interests, like machine learning or robotics or anything like that, then could end up going back to school. But 4 years was good for me. I was ready to stop doing homework on the weekends. It was a nice change.
What motivated you to work in technology?
Interesting. Part of my biggest motivator was that it was just clearly something I was really good at, and it just felt, it feels really solid, and there's a real sense of completion to science, and especially particularly to math. That's like one of my favorite things about math, and why I always loved studying it and loved taking more classes and learning more, just because of how there's a right and a wrong, and there's a point when you're done with the problem and you can just kind of look and it just feels so solid and complete and stable. So there's, I don't know, there's some interesting things about tech in that way, and science in general, that really appeal to me. That even though I talk about kind of having a creative side and liking to be creative, I think just how good it feels when your code compiles and it runs and it's done and you you've finished the problem as far as you can, was something really appealing to me. And it's still just I don't know, spiritually, philosophically, whatever. It just really, it's a really fun thing.
Okay, well, you kind of answered the next question within that. So, did you face any obstacles getting where you are today, specifically as a woman in the STEM field?
Sure. I think a lot of the obstacles I faced were all inside my head, in that anytime I got an opportunity or got into a college or got a research opportunity or anything, I would immediately chalk it up to luck, and people would say congratulations, and I would just be so embarrassed and really try to pin it back to, oh, I was just really lucky. Like there's no way I would get like I deserved this internship at Google. I like applied on a whim. There's like no way they meant to actually accept me. So I think always having that doubt that I wasn't worthy, or even worse, that they only gave me the job because I was a woman. I think kind of in this age of a lot of places and colleges in particular are trying to make an effort to take more women and more diverse people. But that gives you, have you heard the term imposter syndrome?
No.
Okay, so that comes up a lot when we talk about women in STEM and just diversity in general. It's just this feeling that even when you do make it or get a job or get an opportunity, you're just completely limited because you feel like you're not supposed to be there, that you're not going to measure up, that you just like feel like everyone's looking at you and wondering why you're in the room.
Yeah.
And it's a huge deal, and it happens to a lot of people and a lot of people I know, and it's a huge problem. And I've definitely seen that, and I've each step become more and more confident in the fact that I did deserve to be there. Like, I am smart enough to do this. I am good at my job, and the people around me do want me there and do accept me. But it's every step of the way has stunted my growth a little bit because it takes me a while to get over that.
Okay. Did you have a role model when you started looking into STEM that like really inspired you?
Definitely my teachers at Westtown. I think, always having my dad to look up to and other, scientists in my family. I think I loved having a woman math teacher and teacher Sally. Is she still here? Sally Hammond? Yeah. Okay. She was fantastic, and she was total, like, very powerful woman and just so smart. And so I really looked up to her. She was kind of maybe like the first step into, oh wow, I want to be strong and I want to be up there and I can, I can be the only woman in the room and it's okay. There were a lot of people in college that I really look up to, a lot of my peers, people who were just kind of 1 year ahead of me in the stage, and kind of saw them step into the waters a little bit. And then along the way, even in my job right now, I have a couple women that I work with and mentors. And so always just kind of having someone who is one step ahead of you in where you want to be next is huge. And so that's always been the person I look to as a role model is, this makes sense. Like that person where I want to be a year, 2 years from now, she's a woman, we have a similar personality in some way, similar skills, and I'm like, I can get to that. And then you just kind of kept finding someone each step of the way.
What does being a woman in STEM mean to you?
What does it mean to me? I think of it as, I'm really proud of it. I think there were some times when I think maybe in college or maybe even in high school when I have been the only girl in a science class, and I just love the feeling when, I don't know, I got to answer a question or something, or like in some way got to show off that maybe I wasn't at the bottom of the class, maybe I was actually at the top of the class, and kind of taking what was probably people's expectations that I wasn't going to do very well, and you just get an extra thrill if people weren't expecting much of you, and then you could throw it in their face and actually be great. So I try to kind of turn those into positive experiences and just kind of lifting myself even more. But in terms of my role in kind of the greater world is definitely feel like a responsibility to the next generation, so the people, a step or two below where I am now, to just have a presence for them to see and have examples of women and people from different backgrounds, that it's possible, that it's normal, that you don't have to fit into this very stereotypical thing to work in tech. And there's great jobs out there and they're really fun, and a lot more people should be interested in than are. And so being able to reach those girls and people who are younger, and just so that the path is possible.
Okay, so do you think it's important for other girls to see women succeeding in STEM?
Definitely. And I think it starts really young. I think it starts in elementary school and middle school, because I don't know, kind of all the numbers and facts I've seen are, by the time you get to high school, if you haven't tried computer science, you probably, like, it's not very likely that you will. If you haven't seen, if your numbers of women in science classes is down by the time you get to high school, it's hard to recoup that by the time you get into college and then even into industry. It makes sense, because you have to really start at the bottom of the funnel. So I think really bringing a lot of attention to those younger grades and making sure they're playing with computers, and also the image of the boys and girls playing together with computers, because in that stage, until before you get into high school, where you divide up into specialties and levels and things like that, you got to capitalize on that opportunity where the classroom actually is half and half, and then start to get those images there of what a science classroom can look like.
Do you have any advice for girls, or young girls in particular, who are interested in pursuing a STEM career?
Yeah, I think definitely go for it and don't be scared. And I think a really important part is to lift up other women and lean on your peers. And a problem I see all the time is because of that imposter syndrome, because you're already feeling like you don't belong there. A lot of women fail because they're too afraid to ask questions, because they're struggling a little bit and don't make the jump to ask for help, or because it's risky, because you already feel like you're at a disadvantage. So anything you can do to collaborate with your peers, or have a casual study group that turns it into a fun activity, but the aspect of having a safe space where you can feel free to ask stupid questions or just get anything out, and really talk about it openly, will be a huge deal to your performance in classes and things like that. Yeah.
I'm changing the subject now. So what do you do at Google? Like, what's your job?
Sure. So I'm a software engineer on the Google Maps team. I work in the San Francisco office. Particularly, I work on the Android app. So most people have iPhones, so you probably don't use it. But actually, most of the world uses Android. So we actually have a lot more people working on the Android app rather than the iPhone. And I work on things like user interface. So we're very close to what the user actually sees. We don't deal very much, my team in particular doesn't deal very much with data, so I can't really tell you why this one route was particularly slow or got directions wrong. But we're all about kind of making what visually shows up on the screen really helpful and easy to understand, and try to be predictive, and to make that first interaction you have with Google Maps, try to be really smart about what we think you're gonna try to use it for.
Have you noticed attitudes towards women changing in STEM since you started working in the field?
Interesting. I think so. I think people are definitely talking about it, and that's a huge step. I think people are talking about it, and people are reaching out and trying to make a difference. It's really hard to answer that question, because I feel like I've been in such different phases that it's hard to, I don't really know like what's going on in high school classroom nowadays and things like that. I mean, I'm really curious to know, and I'm hopeful that it's gotten better and people are more aware, and girls are feeling more empowered and more confident. So I'd say I definitely see that we're talking about it more, and things are happening more. I think the danger behind what I was talking about before, about things like affirmative action and all these things are great. And we do need to be focusing on those, but we also have to think about the the consequences of that too, which is the imposter syndrome. So kind of making sure we're going about it through both avenues, through encouraging women and getting them into college programs and really focusing on recruitment and things like that, but also making sure we're supporting the people in the industry and in their jobs and in their work. To make sure they're continually supported and know that they earned their position and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, the number of times I've heard the phrase women in STEM has like increased by like 10, 50% or 50 times since I was the single girl in, advanced calculus or whatever. So I think it's good that we're talking about it. We're definitely moving in the right direction.
What are your future career goals?
Ooh, I am really loving Google. It's been an amazing first place to work. I've learned so much and had a lot of support and mentors and people to learn from. So I think I'm still very much in this trajectory where I'm going to learn a lot there. Me and people I work with are constantly faced with the decision of a big company that's stable and reliable versus a small startup where you work the entire day and on weekends, but you have a ton of freedom and work on something really cool and interesting that you're passionate about. I'm really loving the stability and the amazing opportunity to work on a product that's already established and people already love. So I'm super grateful for the team that I work on now and love the setup there. I'm also really grateful, particularly due to a lot of the managers I've had and women managers, that I've only been there for like 2.5 years, but can start to see myself getting more responsibility. So I think now that I've really gotten to love this team and that I'm working on, that my goals are really to continue at Google and become a manager and be in charge of a larger group of people and continue to help with hiring and hoping to build that personality and that culture and have an effect in that way. But there's always a part to me that wants to, maybe if some like crazy idea that I really fall in love with comes around, it might be fun to work at a startup for a little bit. But I don't know, I haven't felt the calling yet. It's cool that that's an option though.
Yeah. What lessons did you learn at Westtown that helped you later on in life?
I think Westtown was, and I don't know if anyone's told you this, probably the most stressful time of my life. The most competing requirements and the feeling that you're always letting someone down just because you don't have enough time in the day and you don't want to let anyone down, but your work job on top of your club and your research and your 10 classes that all happen at once. And I had to learn so much time management and prioritization and I owe so much of that to Westtown, and it's crazy that we were exposed to developing those real life skills so early, that made college really easy, because I really had a sense of how to prioritize things and where to spend my time and also where to focus time on things that I really loved and just being exposed to so many things at Westtown really gave me confidence in what things that I really like to do. There's things at Westtown that like really important life skills that I noticed with me in my career today. Just the writing skills that you kind of don't get such a solid foundation else in life. I still remember, just this morning I was working and had to write out a proposal document about what we were going to work on this year, and I used the same thesis-centered structure that I was taught in senior English. So having that really strong breadth and liberal arts background is special, makes you really special in tech. And it's those kinds of skills that end up allowing you to go really far and to make an impact and show kind of one of the most important things I've learned in my job is, and in college and in lots of parts in life, is one of the most important skills to have is to be able to talk about what you do in a way that sounds like it was really great. You know, I don't say that very well, but I mean, like, on your resume and things like that, and this comes up in jobs too, is being able to take something that you did and phrase it in a way that's really compelling and can really communicate why what you're doing is important and why you're the right person for someone, or why you're qualified. And having those communication skills and those writing skills, you don't get that in a typical engineering school. So I owe a lot to Westtown for the ability to do that.
Anything else you'd like to talk about that we didn't ask you about?
I don't think so. This has been great. I guess I'm just curious to hear, not to put you on the spot, but anything you have to say about your experience, what Westtown's up to these days, what Westtown Robotics is up to. I don't know. I'm sure it's changed a lot since I've been here.
Yeah, it has. I think Westtown's been really good about it, like the affirmative action idea of getting more women involved in STEM, and most of the upper level math classes are, I would say they're mostly women, but it's about 50-50.
Wow.
Where you said you'd
That's
want
awesome.
it to be.
Yes.
Yeah. And the robotics team itself is actually like 60% women, 40% women.
No
it's
way.
40% women this year.
No way.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Change my previous answer. Things have changed a lot.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna make it look official.